Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Mark Williams trade didn't happen, but it still had a good impact for the Lakers. We'll explain why next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always going to be free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers is where, on YouTube, I should say, is where around 32,000 subscribers. I haven't looked today. I don't know if it's over, under, whatever, but about 32,000 of you are all hanging out, talking about the Lakers in the second half of the season, getting excited. Of course, thank you to all of the people, the new people who have come to the channel and are excited to see what the Lakers do going forward with Luka Doncic. Please do not forget to subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can also subscribe to it through iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, that's another place people do it. So we're going to have a lot to cover here as the Lakers start to get into the second part of the season. LeBron reacting at All-Star Weekend to the impact that Luka has had on him, whether or not it's going to maybe keep him around the league for a little bit longer. But we'll start here, Andy. We all know that the Mark Williams trade, much to the chagrin of the Charlotte Hornets, doesn't look like it's happening.
If I'm Mark Williams Wednesday, because the writers' room has just been chef's kiss. The Lakers' first game back after the All-Star break is actually hosting the Hornets. And if I'm Mark Williams, I'm sitting on the Lakers side of the building. Maybe not on the Lakers bench because I'm not a member of the team, but it's been made pretty damn clear the Hornets don't want me. Like, do you remember years ago when the Knicks had Stephon Marbury in this like isolation? He was like off away from the team, like he was getting paid, but they didn't want him around. He was just like a man without a team in exile. And the Knicks were in town to play the Lakers, and Marbury bought a courtside seat at then Staples to just sit and troll the Knicks.
Yeah. I do remember.
If I'm Mark Williams, I do that.
I do that, or I do like I remember in go back a few decades in the movie Wildcats, when like that scene where I think it was the fat lineman was like felt insulted, so he just let the other people go through. I want the Mark Williams to do that on behalf of the Lakers. Like, oh, I'm going to play rim defense. No, I'm not.
I don't think he's going to be on the court, dude. I don't think he's going to be playing.
Well, let's see if they can work this thing out. They got to figure out something.
I don't put him on the court until I've worked things out. Like
I do. They might not. I do.
Well,
because I think it's in the best interest of the Lakers.
Although I guess to some degree, what's the worst thing that could happen? The Hornets lose these games. I mean, maybe in that sense they play him 48 minutes, but
which sounds ideal.
There's a lot of things to figure out.
So, but this I thought was interesting because, the Lakers do this deal, Andy, because in part, I mean, obviously you trade Anthony Davis away, you kind of have a desperate and obvious need for a center. And Mark Williams, from talent standpoint, is better than anybody. You're going to find, better than any name that was out there, going into the trade deadline. So the Lakers make this deal, though, in part because Luka Doncic, who has been on the team at this point for an hour, when this is going on, wants a center that is like Mark Williams, a guy who can get above the rim with a lot of reach, with some offensive skill, who can, and be a good pick and roll partner, an alley-oop partner, a vertical threat, and all that kind of stuff. The Lakers go make this deal. Now, obviously, it doesn't work out. They give him the physical. They give Williams the physical, and and the Lakers decide that over the long term, they cannot do this. Like, he's just not going to hold up well enough to make this happen. But the reaction from Luka Doncic's camp, according to Mark Stein in his Substack that everybody really should be subscribing to. If you're an NBA fan, this is well worth the money that it costs.
Well, particularly until Stein runs out of gossip to report on Dallas's end, because he's as plugged into the Mavericks as anybody, and he's getting a lot of info from the Dallas side. I would say at this point, trying to justify this deal, trying to spin it. So far, very, very unsuccessful.
It's not where I look. It is not an impossibility that down the road, Nico Harrison could be, vindicated by all this. But for the time being, it's just like, if you're Dallas, you just got to kind of eat it and see what happens. But, point being here, Stein reports that the impact, rather than perhaps Luka and his folks being upset the Lakers, in fact, do not have another center, no disrespect to the acquisition of Alex Len. The reaction was, wow, we told you what kind of player we want, and you guys, led by Rob Pelinka, went out there and made a big swing to try and get us the type of talent, get us the team, but also me as a player, Luka Doncic, the type of player that I really thrive with. And that's the part. It's not the absence of center, according to Stein, that Team Luka is focused on. It's the effort. And when you are trying to make a positive impression on a guy who, technically speaking, is not obligated to stay with you beyond, over the long term, that is a nice first impression. So kudos to the front office for that one.
Side note, if Anthony Davis had not strained his ab during this first game with the Mavericks, he would have eventually strained his abs from throwing up, watching Rob Pelinka move heaven and earth to immediately get the center that he's been complaining about for 5 years that he didn't have. It's nice to, I think most of us understand it's always better to be young when you're trying to get people to do things for you. The young get treated better than the old. We get put out to pasture.
But
true. Yeah, I mean, Luka, I think, ultimately understood, he's with a team that wants him, like clearly wants him, because they immediately said, what will it take to make this deal happen, as opposed to Dallas, who was canvassing what will it take to make you take our generational superstar who's not yet in his prime. So he feels wanted right away. But also, I think he understood, like, if I'm going to hitch my wagon to the Lakers, even if he hasn't made up his mind, I'm sure he is mulling it. You want to make sure that you are in as good a position as possible, big picture. And if Mark Williams, if they have reasons to believe that this is too dicey a proposition because of his health, considering how quickly they tried to get him in the first place, I'm sure Luka's going to trust their judgment. So it's not win-win in the sense that the Lakers wanted Mark Williams and they have to deal at minimum this season with that hole. But big picture, it's win-win in the sense that they tried to impress Luka, and thus far, Luka seems impressed.
And it wasn't, look, the Williams trade, and we talked about this as much, we like it as, like, on paper, which is a lot of where Williams exists, not to be mean, but like, he's played 85 games, I believe, of the 3 seasons that he's eligible to play. It is you drop his skill set into the Lakers lineup, and it's like, wow, this is a big deal. Flawed player, not perfect. He's not Anthony Davis defensively, whatever, but he's a very talented offensive player, especially. And he's got a longer standing reach than Wemby. So, like, just the physical tools are there. But it was an enormous risk for the Lakers to enter into this, because if you trade for Williams, you almost certainly have to give him an extension in the offseason. I think everybody understands, like, in a less chaotic offseason setting, the Lakers may be able to take those same assets plus whatever else they're able to do over the summer when the NBA calendar flips over and make a deal that is a little bit less risky. Now, they might not. Like, it is very possible that Mark Williams actually could turn out to be better than who they go get this offseason. But, it is the long-term future of the Lakers isn't compromised by the trade being rescinded. It's just the short-term ability to plug a center in with a real upgrade right now. But that doesn't seem to bother Luka, and the acquisition of Luka certainly doesn't seem to bother LeBron, and we'll explain that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by TurboTax, and this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes were waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. And now Taxes is matching you with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes the undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All you need to do now is just get the most money back, guaranteed. It's no waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates, only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Quick reminder, Locked On Lakers is not just a podcast, Andy. It's not just an ethos. It's also a newsletter. And you can register, sign yourself up for that by going to lockedondaily.com and then clicking on Locked On Lakers. And then you have this show and lots of great NBA insight delivered to you every single day. And it is a nice gesture to us if you do it directly. You go to lockedondaily.com. It's like you're doing us a favor, so we say thank you to you. So LeBron was talking about Luka at the All-Star break, and he was asked if Luka is the type of player he thinks that could, extend his career a little bit, which, we've talked about here. If there's an archetype for the type of player, Andy, who could finally take a little bit of load, like really, truly take load away from LeBron throughout a regular season, it is a guy who is as close to a facsimile of LeBron on that side of the ball as you can really get in the NBA. And that's Luka. And he said, LeBron said, he hasn't really thought about how Luka might extend his career. I'm not sure I believe him, but or if it will, or the idea that playing longer with Luka will get him to stick around longer. That I kind of believe maybe, but he did say this: just the excitement of being able to add a caliber of player like that, a generational talent like that to our franchise. It's something that's given me energy. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do. We've only had 2 games so far, and I believe he's on a minutes restriction since coming back from that calf. As he continues to get into form, I think we could be really good going down the stretch, but we'll see what happens. We can get a little bit into this idea of how long he plays, meaning LeBron, but this idea of energy and excitement, I know is something that you have been really following with LeBron, really going back a couple seasons. And it makes a lot of sense why.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been this school of thought that one of the reasons that you draft LeBron, beyond the idea of it's what LeBron wants, you're making your superstar happy. It's also the idea of LeBron now in season 22, age 40. It is harder for him, by his own admission, to get through the daily slog of the 82-game regular season, particularly pre-All-Star game, when a lot of this feels at its sloggiest, and you look for the different things that can possibly add either a sense of purpose or excitement or newness. And obviously your son on your team with you can do that, except for the fact that LeBron doesn't play with Bronny for all intents and purposes. Like, Bronny has played, I haven't looked lately, but I'm guessing he's played under 75 minutes this season. Like
you vamp, I'll tell you.
He doesn't play much. So and the Lakers don't practice much. So other than, team flights and team dinners and which I'm sure is enjoyable for LeBron, and this experience is, I'm sure, great for LeBron, I would posit that there is only so much day-to-day tangible excitement and energizing that LeBron gets from Bronny's presence. And frankly, there's only so much I think LeBron wants to expend being a role model for Bronny. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the type of thing that I think is going to energize him in December on a Tuesday. But Luka, beyond what he brings as a player and the way he can help LeBron, all that stuff, Luka's brand new. Like LeBron has rarely played with a player of Luka's talent because there are very few at that level in the first place. And this is a new experience. Luka is in a lot of ways the closest thing to young LeBron that he's ever encountered. And as much as I truly believe LeBron appreciated and respected and was grateful for the things Anthony Davis did on the court with him, there's a certain amount of help that LeBron had to provide AD in order to turn around and reciprocate the help for LeBron. And also
just by nature of the position he plays on the floor.
And also this is going on the 6th season together. Like, the newness factor, long gone. This is something brand new for LeBron, and I think that matters.
And we'll get deeper into this after the break. There's another significant reason I think the AD thing in terms of this, just contextually for this aspect of energy and interest and excitement, was reaching its end. By the way, 72 minutes for Bronny this year.
I was pretty close.
Yeah. And there is, it is hard to overestimate how difficult it is. LeBron sat out the All-Star game because his foot and his ankle aren't behaving the way they're supposed to, and he's a little banged up and this and that. But even with all that, like, he played a lot of games last year. He played the Olympics. He's been in the lineup for the most part all season long this year. He is, he's not the two-way guy he has been over the course of his career. I think everybody can agree with that. He has, to his credit, JJ Redick's made a point of this, really picked up his defense.
I was going to say, more so lately, he
has been better about fulfilling sort of the minimum obligations of what you need to do, and then sometimes much better than that, because of it's important because of the impact it has on the rest of the team. But you can't overestimate how hard it is. His body, for the most part, continues to cooperate. Like, physically, you can tell the difference between 40-year-old LeBron and 30-year-old LeBron, but 40-year-old LeBron is still out there on the floor, and he's still one of the top tier effective players in the NBA.
Sure.
Argue about where, I don't care, but he's still that guy. What's really hard is, after 20 years of this, 20 plus years of this, staying interested in what it is that you want to do and doing the extra work that it takes more work to stay at, to kind of head off that decline than it used to. So he's got to work harder just to maintain what he's got. And finding the motivation to get out of bed for a 5 a.m. workout, or not eat the chocolate cake, or,
limit himself to 4 Lobos tequilas.
Right. Lord knows you and I wouldn't, because he gets it for free, Andy. It's not like he's got to pay for it.
He likes him some wine and tequila.
If you and I had access to free wine and tequila, we would not be in that good of condition. I can tell you that. But it's just like to have a guy like Luka changes, like that interest level is just the motivation part of it really matters. Because, like you say, Bronny's not changing the springtime equation. He changes like the fall. Like, this is kind of fun. Let's go back to work and training camp.
But for
stuff
like a
that.
month. And then I think
And it sounds like,
I'm not being dismissive of Bronny.
Right.
I'm just saying there's only so much you can tangibly take from that before the thrill. I don't want to say the thrill is over, because again, I think LeBron enjoys having Bronny there, but I'm talking about the charge of energy from it, because they don't play together.
right.
I don't even know how much they practice together, because the team doesn't practice much. And then it has to be at a time where Bronny's called up and that LeBron's actually participating full in. There's a lot of different stuff. And again, there's only so much of a tangible effect,
Right.
I believe, this can have over the course of a season,
At
practically
some point,
speaking.
it does seem like right now, with Kobe, it seemed like for a long time it was going to be like, you know what? It's going to be when he's sort of Danny Glover's "I'm too old for this" bleep, that he's going to drop out. Then the Achilles happen, and physically he's just not the same. LeBron, knock on wood, has avoided that, and it does look like his mind could be the thing that gets him out of the game before his body. And I think that energy that he's talking about is really significant. There's another aspect of it. I alluded to the AD thing that I think is also extremely significant. ESPN kind of touched on this a little bit heading into the second half with their playoff contenders preview, and we'll explain what we mean next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Hungryroot. When it comes to grocery shopping, meal planning, I've got an ongoing problem. I don't have time, and I love to cook, but between work and life and trying to eat healthy, getting particular about it, it becomes a stressing situation. You go to the grocery store, but you're rushed and you don't buy everything that you need. Then you don't end up with all the stuff that you want to cook or even the time to do it. And sticking to health goals, because I really do try to eat pretty clean, it becomes a struggle. But then everything changes upon discovering Hungryroot. Honestly, it's a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without the stress. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all at once. They take care of the grocery shopping. They recommend meals. They recommend groceries based on your taste and your health goals. And you can include options like anti-inflammatory or high protein, gluten-free. The best part is the meals are easy to make. They're ready in 15 minutes or less, and they're healthy. They taste great, and it's all delivered right to your door. It's a time saver, and it makes everything simpler. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I've enjoyed it. And for a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off the first box and a free item of your choice for life. Hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out.
So ESPN Monday, I think it was Monday, it might have been over the weekend, doesn't matter, put out its sort of tiers list of contenders in the Western Conference, and obviously no surprise there, the clear-cut favorite, tier one, the only team in tier one as at least by Kevin Pelton's standards at ESPN, was the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have been all season long far and away the best team in the conference. Tier two starts with Denver, who after a slow start has started to really gain some momentum, and they are still the Nuggets. They still have the best player on the planet in Nikola Jokic. Guys like Christian Brown are playing better. He's really started to, kind of quietly look good. They'll get Aaron Gordon back. I'm not writing off the Nuggets. A team like Houston, kind of in the next little tier down, and right there in tier 2.5, I guess if you want to call it that, you can go look at the ESPN article and decide, are the Los Angeles Lakers, Andy. And that is not a place, tier 2.5. Nice. It's platform 9 3/4 if you're a Harry Potter fan, but that is tier 2 is if something happens to Oklahoma City, or maybe they're just not quite ready this year, Chet sprains an ankle again, or Shea's misses too many shots, whatever it is, you're right in that next group is ready to take advantage of it. And that is not where anybody really thought the Lakers were a month ago.
Yeah,
5 weeks ago.
To put this in a little more perspective, a little more clarity to it, they had described the Lakers as in a tier of teams that are in the mix. And in the mix is a higher tier, the way Kevin Pelton had broken this down, over teams that were currently play-in teams. Like they have the Lakers right now as a firm playoff team, which is certainly higher than the Lakers have been considered consensus-wise for most of this season. Even like the period pre-AD trade when they were winning and playing better, but there was still a lot of, I think, anticipating either a shoe to drop or just a general lack of belief in the team. And we still have, it's funny because we still have seen such a small sample size with Luka, who has been admittedly rusty. He's still coming back from that calf strain.
By the way, the other piece of news in that Stein newsletter for this week is he did say the Lakers are going to be very careful with Luka coming back. Because they have the makeup game based on the fire, the game's lost because of the fires in LA. They play Wednesday and Thursday. Doncic is expected to only play in one of those games, and the Lakers will probably keep his minutes limit intact for a little while longer. Quite frankly, I suspect the AD injury spooked them a little bit. They do not want the same thing to happen to Luka.
Right. But, this is going to be, I think, a feeling out process for the Lakers. It's also at a time, by the way, where last we checked, DFS, Gabe, and Vando were all on minutes limits on top of it. So this team is still not at complete, full, unleashable strength. And Luka is still both on a minutes limit, physically recovering, and still learning his teammates. And, other than DFS, like who he's played for several years in Dallas with, like there's still a lot of learning each other going on. But there's no question that psychologically, at the very least, this team is seen differently now around the league. And it's funny, like at a time where we've seen very little of them, and they're at times like the best end of the previous incarnation, the best version of the previous incarnation of the Lakers with LeBron and AD, even when they were playing well, is not getting the same level of, I think, respect as this version of the Lakers that you can see on paper, but there's still a lot of it that is imagination based, you know what I mean? Or like projection based. But this version of the Lakers is one that a lot of pundits around the league are clearly taking more seriously.
Well, and I think it's less because of the Doncic trade itself, although I think that has obviously raised the interest in the Lakers and the excitement around the Lakers. We certainly will vouch for that. But
Zadravo, you all.
But there's they were playing quite well before the trade. And they were winning games, playing quality defense in games that Anthony Davis didn't play before Luka put on a uniform. And I think had they not been doing that, had they not, won 10 of 12 and started to do some of the things that you and I have been saying, like, you can't even think about calling this a good team, a team that can make a run in the conference until you play well for 3 weeks at a time, a month. You got to have at least a month somewhere of good play. They've finally done it. But to kind of tie this together to the points we were making before, LeBron is not stupid. None of these people are stupid. And they know the amount of, do we got like a 5% chance? Okay, yeah, technically speaking, we got like a 5% chance or a 10% chance of really making some noise. I'm not talking about winning a title. I mean like conference finals, shot at a finals or something like that. Realistically, we have not played well enough to do that. And you kind of have to fool yourself and pretend that you are. Then the Lakers start playing well. And not only does the expectation change for this year, but tying it back into AD, LeBron knows that if they don't, the part of the reason Luka's energizing and all that stuff and maybe changes the equation for next year and all that kind of stuff is because if LeBron and AD play as well as they can and they run it out this year or whatever, it's really hard to picture it being better next year. And I don't know if Luka and LeBron next year, the roster they're going to come back with is going to be a title contender or not. But I can tell you it's more likely to be. And the future has more possibility to it and more upside to it with Luka than it did with AD because AD's in his 30s. And it's just that combination of guys who's just probably not going to get better. Maybe it hovers where it is, but it doesn't get better. This combination could.
Yeah. And maybe it doesn't. We won't know. I mean, we've seen glimpses of what Luka can look like, but the opening 2 games have certainly not been up to Luka's standards. And, until they can get, I think, a more proven guy at center than, respectfully to Jackson Hayes, who I think has actually held down his position better than, if I were to guess internally, they had ever expected, much less hoped for.
Yeah, although I will say this, like when you kind of think about it, like if Jackson Hayes' skill set to maximize what he's good at, pair him with LeBron and Luka.
Sure, but he had been playing well even before Luka's arrival.
Sure,
like,
for sure.
But I clearly the front office feels like there's a ceiling to what you can reasonably expect from Jackson Hayes because they aggressively traded for Mark Williams. And I think that is an area of the roster that's going to need to be addressed before you can really feel like this team on paper profiles to be serious championship contenders. But you are correct in just saying the upside at the very least is more imaginable with Luka than with AD because, I mean, first of it, this doesn't get talked about as much, but it is easier to build around Luka and LeBron than it is LeBron and AD, because even though AD and LeBron play very well off each other, there's a certain amount of redundancy with them on the court together. They are more similar as players, and I think there's more rigidity in the way you build around them. Luka and LeBron can kind of be whatever the hell you want them to be. And I think there's more freedom and flexibility in putting pieces around them because they are both so uniquely versatile. And it's weird because they're closer as players than LeBron and AD are, but LeBron and AD I feel like are more redundant when you are trying to build around them.
It is a setup that does more for the Lakers going forward, and it's just exciting. It's exciting to see what the possibilities are. I think LeBron. I believe him when he says because I don't think Luka is going to be the thing. I think he's just decide one day I don't want to play anymore or whatever. But if you are in the business of trying to extend LeBron's career, if you're the Lakers, who I do think want, especially now, because it's like the future is kind of established. Now you kind of want LeBron to stick around as long as you can, as long as he's effective. For LeBron to have that feeling where he doesn't have to fake it, like convince himself that meaningful spring basketball is a possibility. I think that is one of the things going into every season beyond a farewell tour and all that other stuff that will motivate him to keep doing the work.
Honestly, I don't know if the Lakers necessarily want LeBron to play longer, but we know they're never going to force him out the door. So as long as he chooses to be here, you want the most flexibility to put teams around him with him on a roster. And Luka allows more possibilities for that, regardless of it internally, how long they want LeBron to stick around or not. They're never going to ask him to leave. They don't do that. No. So this is a better setup for that.
Yeah, whether they should or shouldn't, I guess, is a conversation for a different day that you and I might feel differently about, but it's not one that we need to be having in mid-February because he ain't going anywhere right now. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with around or something like
32,000.
Okay, 32,000 subscribers to the channel. Please stick with us as we get ready for the final 30 or so games of the second half. Starting on Wednesday, the back-to-back, again, Luka may or may not play in both of them, probably just one, according to Stein, but some big games coming up for the Lakers. So they really do need to get off to a good start in the second half to keep this nice position that they're in. We'll see everyone tomorrow.